I'm Melissa DaSilva, and I'm an out boss.
Hello, Out Bosses. Rhodes Perry here, and welcome to episode number 52 of The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. So I'm really excited. On today's show, I am interviewing a fellow podcaster and out entrepreneur, Melissa DaSilva, calling all the way from the Ocean State, Rhode Island. So Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. And I have to let you know that in Rhode Island, we talk a little bit different without using any of our R's. So that might come through on the podcast.
I love that. I love that. Well, it'll make me feel like I'm back on the East Coast again. So
That's right.
It's really exciting to have you on the show. And just a little bit about Melissa's background for our audience. So Melissa is a licensed social worker and founder of the Rhode Island-based mental health agency East Coast Mental Wellness. And she specializes in providing therapy and hypnosis services to members of the LGBTQ plus community. And she's also the host of a really awesome LGBTQ plus podcast called Pride Connections. And I was really lucky to be a guest on the show a while back, and I had a great time. She's also an artist on her time off and a proud wife and pet parent. So I love that. Expanding the fur family, the fur babies. I've got a few of my own. So
that's right.
Yeah. So Melissa, you're doing some really, really cool stuff. Just tell us a little bit more about your business and what makes it unique.
So my business, I am the founder of East Coast Mental Wellness, and I have 5 other clinicians that work under me. And I have a background actually in school social work. So when I was younger, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up, was a school social worker. And then circumstances changed, and I decided that I really needed to be my own boss. And so I started East Coast Mental Wellness. And then from East Coast Mental Wellness, I wanted to create a platform where people could share their inspiring stories. So I created Pride Connections.
I love that. I love that, as your background, you're a clinician, you're working one-on-one, you're specializing in working with the LGBTQ population. And you're also, understandably through that work, you're hearing everyone's stories, sometimes some of the challenges, probably a lot of times the challenges, but also just kind of the resilience. Using a different platform to really lift up some stories, obviously not your clients, because you have to maintain confidentiality, but just really kind of showcasing all of the amazing stuff that so many of us in the Rainbow family are doing. So I want to tip my hat to you for making that space and really just shining a light on who we really are, especially during a time when I think there's still so many false myths and stereotypes about, who LGBT people and communities are. So, you are doing a lot. You're running your own business. You have your podcast. Right now, what has you most inspired about your business and why?
I would say that I am super inspired about the podcast. I'm also inspired about the new program I'm starting, where I'm sending clinicians into schools to give one-on-one services to students, because schools can't provide the therapy services that kids need. And there's a lot of barriers to kids getting mental health services. So I'm trying to fill that need by having clinicians go to schools and doing it there. It doesn't cost the schools any money, and parents don't have to figure out how to get their kids to therapy.
I love that. So you're using your skills that you had formerly when you were an employee, right? Mm-hmm. And remembering that time of like, whoa, if I had the budget or the purse strings, like here's how I would do it different. So you had that kind of unique insider's perspective of seeing this gap and really a business opportunity. And now you're responding to that. And I think that's huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just really like when people ask me questions about the program, I'm like, I already got that answer because I know what you need. I've been there.
Yeah. And that just brings so much credibility. So I think for a lot of the audience, there's people just thinking about getting started, or they haven't, or they have a side hustle, and just, drawing on your skills, like knowing what you already have credibility in a lot of spaces. How do you then convert that into a business? And you've done that so successfully. You're a great possibility model for a lot of people. I want you to kind of go back to that time, when you were working in a school, you were providing clinical services, and you're thinking like, okay, I'm ready to kind of make a move. what was your primary motivation? For some of our guests, they start their businesses because, they had a purpose and, they wanted to make a huge dent in the universe and kind of follow their heart. And for a lot of other folks, by virtue of being LGBT or just by virtue of not being valued in general in the workplace, some folks have came to the realization, like, I can no longer fit myself into kind of, I'm not a square peg that can fit into this kind of like cookie cutter mold of being an employee. I'm ready to kind of bust out and try something on my own. So which side of the coin did you land on and why?
So when this kind of happened, I had already started doing some one-on-one therapy on my off hours, seeing like 3 clients a week. But what really pushed me was at the school, I found that I was becoming physically sick. I could have swore it was carbon monoxide poisoning. Like, I wanted to fall asleep instantly when I was in my office. Nobody believed me. I went to the urgent care several times, the emergency room, to an allergy person. I even went to a psychic because maybe I had a spirit attached to me and it was making me feel this way. Like, I could not figure out what was going on. And nobody would believe me. The school would try to tell me, oh, it's something at your house. It must be something at your office. And it was that point where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't work in these conditions. I can't work for somebody who doesn't believe that I'm physically getting ill. I need to do something about this. And that's when I was like, all right, I got to take the leap and just jump into my own business. And that's when it was like, I just started putting all my time and energy into creating this business. And come to find out, like, they removed mold from underneath my office, but nobody would ever say anything to me. And then we ended up having to move out of that building because there was rot underneath the building that the whole front of the building was going to fall down. But yeah, I'm the one that was like having anxiety attacks in quotes. So it was like, I knew there was something that wasn't adding up. And I almost feel like it was like the universal's way of saying, like, this isn't for you. Come on, take the leap and you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like if the administration had acknowledged what you were saying, it would have been a huge liability for them. It probably could be still, depending on how long ago that was for you, right? Where it's just like not listening to an employee, obviously not supporting you, but even kind of questioning your judgment around, hey, like, physically, every time I walk in this building, this is happening, right?
Yeah.
So,
and the thing was, their answer was to move my office. And so they moved my office to a 3rd floor with no windows, no heat, no air conditioning, 1 outlet. And that was their answer for me. So I'm going into this dingy dungeon that I used to call the Bat Cave because bats used to live in it too. Oh
my God. Yeah. So, like, for any HR folks who are listening to this show, here's what not to do to create an inclusive workplace culture, right? Like, I mean, just physically, that's saying a lot about kind of how employees are valued, right? And, kind of on the topic of workplace culture, like, you clearly know from your experiences of working in this particular school of things not to do, especially as you continue to build out your business. In the work that you do, so whether you're, if you have staff or if you contract out or, even with other kind of professionals that you form strategic alliances with, what's one thing that you do to really create an inclusive workplace culture, especially for folks who often feel excluded by kind of dominant, corporate employers who don't consider their specific needs?
So when I started East Coast Mental Wellness and I started bringing on other clinicians, my one focus is that I wanted to have a place where clinicians can work with clients who are their passion. So we all have a passion client, like the ones that we get excited to see, and we want a whole bunch of them because we know that, like, they're our passion. Mine is the LGBTQ plus community. But I wanted a place where clinicians could work with who their passion was. And so that is how I have my business, is like, you come and work with me, you tell me what you want, and let's make that happen. If you want to do groups, let's figure out how to make that happen. And it's also a place where I'll take in interns and teach them how to start your own private practice business. So that's how I really try to make my company different, is really catering to the people that work for me. Because if you have a healthy therapist, you're going to have a healthy therapist that does great work with their clients.
And that's, I mean, it's huge what you're doing. I mean, you're providing a model for other people who may not necessarily want to work with LGBT populations, but say there's a community of people that are in need and they need that specific cultural expertise. Like, you're showing them the model of how to do that. And that's such a amazing way of kind of giving back at the same time as building out your own practice. And I think the practice that you have is so needed. I can't say, I'm someone who's bisexual and transgender, and, and I live in a really progressive place, and yet it's still difficult for many folks in the communities that I'm in to find clinicians, therapists that are, truly LGBT friendly and really they understand. So kind of everything that you're doing, I hope you have plans to write a lot of books on what you're doing, because it's so absolutely needed in your field.
I hope so. I've been tossing that around lately, mostly. So I'm thinking about books in the future. I truly am.
I love it. So just for our audience and also for me, when did you get started on your business? You had mentioned you kind of had you were working in the off hours and you had a little side hustle. When did you kind of make that official leap?
So I started my side hustle 2 years ago, and I made the leap June of this year. So June of this year, I was like, that's it. I'm not coming back to school social work anymore.
Oh my God. I love that. I love that you started in June too. So it's like kicking off Pride Month in such a real way, And
the podcast started on June 25th. So
that's awesome.
It's like a big month for me.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. So this is relatively new. So this question, maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't apply, but in the context of your business, can you share a moment, if this is true for you, where maybe it was hard for you to be out? And I know that you're serving LGBT clients, so that maybe this doesn't hold true, but perhaps as you were negotiating, like forming your business structure, working with lawyers or whoever you're working with, on the business side, was there a time where it was difficult to be out? And if so, could you share that with our audience and how you might have worked around that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to when you're in school to be a therapist, you're taught that self-disclosure is something that you shouldn't really do, because the session is about your client. And, if somebody asks you a question about yourself, you should ask like, well, what would be the importance of me answering this question? And so we're brought up thinking like, don't talk about yourself. I followed that for a little bit until I had a client, maybe like 4 sessions in, say, well, are you, I see that you have like rainbows. Does that mean that you might be gay? And then it dawned on me, like, this person's coming to me, not even realizing like if I am or not. And it's actually like causing a slow process of therapeutic technique, because that's what they're concerned about. Mm-hmm. And so after having that client ask me that, the first session, I just have my almost my elevator speech saying like, I identify as bisexual, I am married to a man, and just kind of just let that out there so people aren't just using their therapeutic time trying to figure out what's my deal. Yeah. So I think that's where that has come into play.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because I think it's both what you're talking about is kind of professional standards, but and also kind of how much those professional standards are influenced by generational differences too, right? Like, I mean, obviously as a therapist, nothing is about you. You're kind of the neutral party, you're listening, you're trying to kind of guide people along and wherever they need to go. And I think you're right in that for one of your clients, it's, the safety, or is this person really going to get who I am and in my communities, and just because of all of the myths and stereotypes that still exist around, just being LGBT. So I think that just kind of sharing that is really helpful, because there's definitely professions where disclosure is frowned upon. I mean, even I would say in corporate environments that are largely dominated by leadership that is a part of the baby boomer generation, generational differences there. Baby boomers were trained like you don't share anything about the personal in a professional space. And when you do, you're not being professional, quote unquote. And it's so different. Generation, X, but especially millennials and Gen Z now entering the workplace, where especially Gen Z, they've only known life with a computer screen in front of them and social media and being out there. So it'll be interesting to see how that changes, and how that impacts, professions like being a therapist, and if it does or if it doesn't, and So I really thank you for sharing that, because I know that a lot of people relate to that particular scenario. So this show is all about empowerment and really amplifying the benefits of being out in our work and being out as bosses. And so I'd like for you to reflect on your time so far of running your business around, what are some of those assets that you see either working one-on-one with clients and kind of putting that out there, as you said in the beginning of a session or kind of a relationship with a client, about being out, that really helps you build a strong business. So kind of specifically, like, what are some of those immediate strengths that come to mind when you think of the power of being an out boss?
I think that being an out boss has actually allowed me to kind of go on my own journey too. I mean, I never had an out of the closet moment of okay, I am bisexual and this is who I am. I mean, I don't think I even came out to my mom yet. She might know now from the podcast, but I don't know. But it was always I like women and I like men, and I've never really gone down that journey of what does that mean? It's just who I am. And I think that, being able to kind of be yeah, I'm an out boss, I'm bisexual. I love both genders, has allowed me to really been able to connect with other people too, through networking or through podcasting. Being more in touch with myself has allowed me to have that strength to connect with other people. And I think that's where it's kind of leveraged that for me. Yeah, I think that's probably where it's worked.
Yeah, I think that a key trait of a leader is just that self-awareness, right? And I think as you're thinking more, especially through your podcast, I mean, you're hearing other people's stories, just being LGBT in the world, not necessarily as an out boss. I think especially with coming out stories, I find it interesting just to see how people reintroduce themselves when they come out as being LGBT to people that they love and colleagues, et cetera. Maybe that was something similar that you experienced too. In June, you kind of threw a stake in the sand to say, I am my own boss now. I am not going back to the school ever again. Right. So
that's right.
Do you see some kind of parallels with, just coming out in general and then kind of reintroducing yourself as a business owner?
I think so, because I almost feel almost stronger, right? I can take on the world almost, at that feeling of, I can do anything, really. June was the month of transition for me. I am who I am. I'm getting to that age where it's almost I don't give a shit what people think.
Yeah.
And that has been the best part of getting older.
Yes.
And then just being I'm going to do my own thing because I know I can. Mm-hmm. And just having that confidence in myself. And then just, what I have found coming out is that people automatically assume that I'm straight, which is interesting. And because I'm married to a man, so that kind of really throws people off. But it also has empowered me to kind of talk about, what does bisexuality mean? What does it mean to me? Does it mean that I want to have sex with everybody? No, it just means what it means to me, and just kind of do some education around that too.
Yeah. And I think around the sexual orientation of being bisexual, there's a lot of confusion. And I think for you to have the space that you do, especially on your podcast, to kind of, casually just talk about your life, really kind of redirect people around assumptions that they have, just by kind of looking at you and your gender presentation and, assuming things. As someone who's bisexual, I get it. It happens all the time. And it's always, there's assumptions based on the context of who you're with or who you're married to or dating. Mm-hmm. And it offers an opportunity to open the door just to kind of share your experiences and introduce a new perspective for other people.
And I think that just comes down to society wanting to put people in boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And even with people I work with who identify as transgender, they feel like they have to be either or. And it's no, you don't. It's just the way society has programmed us that we have to be either or attracted to either or. And just kind of educating people around that. It's no, it doesn't have to be that way.
Totally. I think for people who are bisexual, pansexual, there's so many linkages to folks who are transgender, and especially transgender folks or even people who are just non-binary in presentation or kind of gender non-conforming, that there's so many parallels, because people immediately, they need to know, they want to know, because they want to put you in a category, and it's our programming. Mm-hmm. in a lot of ways. And So we like to throw some curveballs there. And,
that's right.
And it's fun as a business owner too, because then you can, there's a different platform for you to provide this kind of education every now and again. Kind of considering some of those challenges that you talked about, and then also, some of the strengths that we bring as outbosses. What do you want our listeners to focus in on and really make sure that they take away to inspire them to be more authentic in their work every day?
I think it's to follow your intuition, follow your gut, because there's always going to be somebody out there telling you the opposite. And you could follow each one of those person's, opinions or strategies. But once you just sit and really touch into yourself, follow your own intuition and your own gut, because you know what is the right choice and what's the right steps for you to take.
I love that. I think that's super empowering. And it's scary too, when you know that you have all the answers and no one else can show you the way. You have to really kind of listen in and follow your heart, and it will point you in the right direction. You just have to be quiet sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially if it's pointing you in a direction that's scary, and I think that you're providing a great example of just what you did in June. That takes a lot of guts. And
it does. Yeah. And I had friends telling me like, oh, you're not quitting the school. You'll be back. And that was just like, I am going to so prove you wrong now.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. Sometimes that definitely is a motivator for me too. So it's just like, I will be doing this. And it takes a lot of resilience. And I think that's part of the blessings of being a part of the Rainbow family is we have a lot of resiliency. So on that note, we're going to take a really, really short sponsorship break. And for our listeners, please don't go anywhere, because this conversation is great and it's going to continue after the break. Aspiring outbosses, are you struggling with taking that first entrepreneurial leap? Does the imposter syndrome prevent you from getting started? Have you considered seeking support, but you're just not sure where to turn? Look no further. The Out Entrepreneur now offers a coaching and mentorship program where you can access support and strategies to shift your mindset from employee to entrepreneur. If you're looking for accountability and a mentor who successfully busted out of the 9-to-5 lifestyle, let's schedule a time to talk today. Visit www.outentrepreneur.com and look for show notes from today's episode to schedule a call. Again, the URL is www.outentrepreneur.com. Together, let's welcome you to the wonderful world of being an outboss. Welcome back, Outbosses. We are now going into our bonus round where we'll have the chance to get to know Melissa a little bit better, gain some insights on how we can bring our whole selves to work, and then learn one way that we can stay in touch with Melissa and her business after today's conversation. So, Melissa, are you ready for the quick fire questions?
I'm ready. I've had my Mountain Dew. Let's do this.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Okay, so watch out. There's lots of caffeine happening here. Okay, so in one sentence, what does it mean to bring your whole self to work?
Be you. Just be authentic.
Yeah, just as simple as that. And sometimes that's scary, and it's the best advice, I think.
And sometimes it's just hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. People are like, whoa, did you just say that?
Yeah.
But I think people appreciate the realness, So, yeah. Okay, so what's one personal habit that helps you master yourself and your business?
Ooh, one personal habit is that I usually have a mantra, and it changes depending on the situation, but the mantra is usually what gets me through.
That's awesome. So is there like one that comes to mind?
Right now is you got this, because it's been a really rough week. So that's one mantra that I use. Another one when I don't want to work out is you can't have the wealth without the health. So I'm really, those are the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the other one I use is because I hide money around my house. And every time I find one of these dollar bills, because I've forgotten I put it there, I'll say a mantra of course I found this dollar, because money flows to me like a river.
Oh.
Yes.
That's good. That's good. I when I meditate, I like this is more about self-love, but kind of, I love you, keep going, So it's kind of, I love, so I'm going to write down some of the ones that you just shared. Those are great. Those are really good.
Yes. The money one. Oh, and I also have the mantra. I don't know if you remember that song, like back in the 90s, cream, cash flows everything around me.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's awesome.
My other mantra when I find those dollar bills, depending on what mood I'm in.
I love that. In your business, name one thing that you readily delegate to stay focused on what you're good at.
I have my personal assistant. So Selena has been a lifesaver for me. She doesn't know it, but she pretty much runs my business. I won't let her know that. But she was an intern, and then I ended up hiring her for 40 hours a month. So I pay her monthly, and she answers my phones. She does my billing. She pretty much runs my life for me. So she keeps me sane. I would say that she's probably the best thing that's happened to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. I'm in the process of hiring a VA right now, and I can't wait for that person to come on board because it's needed.
It is. It really is. And I hate speaking on the phone. Like, I just don't like being put on the spot right away. So she has just filtered all that. So it's been wonderful.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'd love to get your take on the current presidential administration, and in particular, as an outboss, do you believe this administration is one that is helping us kind of come closer together to kind of galvanize and kind of push back on some of the ridiculousness that's impacting so many of our loved ones in our communities? Or do you believe that that the kind of current administration is harmful to our businesses?
So I kind of think of it as, you know, how they say, like, the lotus will not grow unless it grows from mud, right? So I even have a tattoo of lotus because I truly believe that beautiful things can come out of pretty muddy situations. And I do believe that with this administration right now, it's a whole lot of mud, and it's got a lot of fertilizer in it too. So I do believe that it has started producing this beautiful lotus. I mean, we are becoming stronger. Like, what I said the other night was like, don't mess with the LGBTQ plus community because we are going to bring it. Yeah. And I think that that's what has come out of this, is that we have grown stronger. And I have to say that about our community is like, we just had an issue in Providence where somebody pulled down a rainbow flag, like 6 of them in one area. And so what did we do? We put up so many more. So it's like, you know, we are becoming stronger and more connected, I believe, because of the ugliness that is kind of fertilizing this stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I love that. I love the visual of the lotus. And I agree. I think we're super strong. We're super resilient. We've seen this before, and we're going to get through this. So thanks for your take on that. So 2 more questions for you. The first is, you know, and this is recent for you, you know, just kind of going back to June. Can you share one piece of advice to inspire the next generation of outbosses to take that first entrepreneurial leap?
So I would say the one piece of advice that I got was from the wonderful John Lee Dumas. I listen to his podcast all the time.
Yes.
And he has this saying of focus, and it's FOCUS, follow one course until success. So if you follow that course and you put your energy into that, then it's going to work. And it might not be right away, and it might take a little while, and it might take a few moving parts. But if you really focus and put your energy and intention on that, then it can happen. You can take that leap.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, JLD is awesome. And that acronym that's one of my mantras. And it also helps me not get distracted by all the shiny things that tend to pop up when you run your own business. So thank you for that. And Melissa, you know, thanks again for being on the show. Before we end the interview today, can you share one way that we can stay in touch with you and learn more about your business?
So you can keep in touch with me from my website for the podcast, which is melissa@prideconnections.com. If you want to know more about my mental health services, we're at eastcoastmentalwellness.com. And you can drop me a line anytime. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as Pride Connections. So I would love to hear from any of your listeners.
Yeah. And for folks tuning in, definitely check out Pride Connections. It's an awesome show. I enjoy listening to it. You do an awesome job hosting it. So I'm a fan.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for outbosses, thank you again for tuning into this week's episode. A couple of people have wondered how to kind of help out and kind of get the show out there. And my request to you is share it with a friend. Definitely subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. And the best way to support the show is to leave a rating and review in iTunes. Leave your honest feedback. Help me make the show meet your expectations. And as always, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.